welcome back to Microsoft Build. I am super excited to be joined by Brendan Burns, who's the CVP of Azure Cloud Native, open source Azure management platform, including Azure Arc. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Excited to be here.
Now, Brendan, you're arguably one of the things you're best known for. You're known for many things, is you're one of the co-founders of Kubernetes. And Kubernetes turned 10 recently, right? Like a couple months ago?
It depends on where you started. I think we announced it at DockerCon in 2014 in June, really beginning of June, so maybe a couple weeks from now, but it certainly was in the development.
It was in the development. Okay,
right
so it was right at the 10th anniversary.
Yeah.
So we've seen, like, and I can't believe that, DockerCon 20, like, it's funny to think back about like what that was, what the world was like back then. We've seen tremendous adoption with Kubernetes since its release 10 years ago. So, what is next in cloud native Kubernetes?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're really focused on is two things. One is making it a lot easier. I think one of the realizations maybe as you get older and maybe a little bit distance from the creation is you realize, well, not everybody's necessarily going to learn exactly all the details of this thing, right? And so it becomes really important to build systems that make it easier for people to adopt it, both from a management perspective and then also from a deploying of workloads perspective. So there's a lot of work trying to simplify the adoption of Kubernetes, and especially in cloud providers like in Azure.
Totally. And do you have any examples that you can kind of offer for me on that?
Yeah, so like here at Build, we were talking about AKS Automatic, which is really about trying to streamline the usage of AKS. We've been doing a lot of work as well. This project called Kaido that is there to make running AI workloads easier. I think generally people are sort of calling this platform engineering, and there's a lot of open source projects that are developing both within Microsoft, like Radius and others, and then outside of Microsoft as well to make that easier.
And what about kind of maybe the role of AI and AI-assisted operations? Is that another way that we could potentially make K8s easier for people to adopt?
Yeah, I think there what we're really seeing is a lot of like, help me understand what's going on. So if AKS Automatic is more about how do I get my application deployed, how do I get it all set up, I think a lot of the places AI is helping is more of the like, what do I do at 3 a.m. when I get woken up? How do I quickly understand what's going on in my cluster, or even just ask questions around like, how do I cost optimize something? So we're really excited. Actually, one of my teams, in addition to the Kubernetes service, is the Azure Copilot team.
Yeah.
So we're really excited about how Copilot enables people to understand Azure broadly, but also we've built skills for AKS, we've built skills for Kubernetes so that you can walk up and say, how do I turn on auto-scaling? And it will enable that auto-scaling for you. You'll get the cost savings of scaling down in the middle of the night, maybe when nobody's using the service. So very excited about how we can help with that, as well as help people, even our own support teams, understand a problem based on previous problems that people have seen. So learning from experience.
I mean, that's honestly one of my favorite parts of AI kind of across the board is that ability to kind of, as a user, get more understanding of things, and learn more about things in a way that you might not otherwise be able to. And then it's also, I think, as you said, kind of exciting to think about, okay, the next step, these systems can maybe learn from patterns and from what it's seeing too, right?
Yeah.
And do you see that as kind of a way to, help support the development of, like AI applications?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we've seen is a lot of people want to be able to use Kubernetes to deploy their AI app. I will say, like, even if you're going to be using a large language model, there's still an API for it.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And so how do you deploy an application that's going to serve the interface for the UI or for the mobile app, connect to like Azure OpenAI service? But then eventually we're also seeing people say like, oh, actually I want to use some of the open source models maybe too. Maybe because of data residency or cost or other circumstances. So you can then transition from using APIs that you're calling in Azure to APIs that you're calling on your cluster, or even deploy those models out to on-premise environments. So we have an open source project called Kaido that's out on GitHub that's really focused on how do we get all of those pieces to come together to make it just easy for you to do what you want to do, which is build an intelligent application, and not worry about the details of exactly how do I get the GPUs provisioned right, or there's a lot of like, how do I get the latest driver? Or maybe for this model, I need a different driver, right? There's all kinds of complexity there, and Kaido just makes a lot of that easier.
That's really great, and I think actually we have a demo of that, right?
Yeah, we absolutely have a demo of that. We can get into that and take a look at Kaido in action. So we can roll a demo. So what we have here is a pet supply store demo, pretty simple one. And it uses a Node.js service, a backend in Rust. It's got RabbitMQ,
Nice.
bunch of different languages. Everybody's polyglot still. And it's talking to the OpenAI service. Here's an example of it in action. You can ask the AI assistant about, and then if you take a look, here we're going to be actually deploying Kaido using Helm. So that's going to take care of the GPU provisioning and the Kaido workspace. And now you can see actually we have these Kaido resources in your Kubernetes cluster. And that's referencing the model and the VMs that are being created to provision it.
Very cool.
All right, so we see it going out, starting to get ready, and you can tell like it's taking care of installing all the drivers, letting Kubernetes know that the GPUs are there, and then actually setting up some services. So you can see here, it's set up a load balanced service, and now you can actually run the API call. Again, you were running against the OpenAI service. You can run it against the deployed model as well. All right. So here you go. It's actually deleting the OpenAI service. We're replacing that OpenAI service with that cluster service. And that's all you have to do to drop in to be running against a local model.
Nice.
Rather than running against, and obviously we go back to the main interface, see that the functionality works. So again, this could be used if you needed to run it on premise, maybe in your retail environment, or maybe with testing. I think unit testing is a big thing where you may not want to pay for the full-on model. You may want to use a less fidelity model for your testing and continuous integration. So there's a lot of value in being able to run the same APIs against the Azure OpenAI service as well as against a local model running in your cluster itself.
Totally, and I think a lot, and a lot of people that I've been talking to, a lot of customers and developers, I think a lot of these hybrid models are probably what is going to be happening in the next months and years, because as you said, there are instances, unit testing, or maybe even just data residency or other requirements, why you want to have that local model. And the local models are getting really good. They're getting really good. Like 5.3 is really, really good. But you also want to be able to run against the various cloud-hosted models too.
Exactly, and there's a wide variety of reasons why you might want to use a local model. But of course, you want to be able to write a single application, works in the cloud, maybe it works on premise, maybe it works in a different cloud. And then I think the other thing we're seeing is, as next steps, we're thinking about, okay, well, people are going to want to fine tune these models. Right.
Yes.
And you can't, it's tricky to fine tune a proprietary model, obviously.
Right.
So if you want to do fine tuning, that's another example of a reason why you might want to run the model yourself locally, or figuring out how you introduce patterns like RAG into the cluster itself as well. Those are all things that we think we're going to be headed towards as we figure out just how to make it easier for you to build these applications on top of that AKS cluster, or really Kubernetes anywhere. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's really interesting because people are going to continue to be using Kubernetes no matter what, but they're going to want to be able to integrate that into these, like you said, like these AI workloads, these models. And I love that demo, being able to show how it can configure things without me having to know what driver do I have to install? What configuration do I need to set up? This is all just going to... And it's tricky, right? Because as the GPUs change, the understanding, how many pods can I schedule onto a node to share? Maybe this GPU is capable of having multiple, we can have virtual GPUs where you can split it up into, smaller GPUs. Some can do that, some can't. And understanding those kinds of capabilities, making sure that the scheduler is set up correctly so that it does the right thing and you don't put a pod onto a machine that won't work if it's there because the GPU is already in use. All that stuff is taken care of for you by the Kaido operator, which just makes it easier for you to focus on, adding AI to your application, which is hard enough. No, that's hard enough. We don't also need to worry about, okay, well, what are the specific, features of this GPU with this specific driver, right? Like that's all going to happen. And I think bringing it back to the Kubernetes at 10 years, maybe. I think that's maybe one of the realizations, right? Which is we get really excited about managing machines and managing resources and managing hardware. I think a lot of people who are developing those applications on top, they just want it to work, right? And so we're focusing a ton of our energy on making it work well and making it work easily so that you can get back to, writing your application. I love that. I love that. So get back to writing your application. Also, here's to 10 more years of Kubernetes. I mean, I keep saying it's going to get boring and people are going to forget about it. So no, they're not. See. I don't think so. I don't think so. All right. And you can head to aka.ms/AKS-build2 if you want to learn more about Kaido, right? Absolutely. Yeah. And there's going to be a bunch of talks at Build as well. Fantastic. Thank you, Brennan. Thanks.